The World Series is over and the offseason is officially here. In today's episode, I'm going to put on my GM hat and I'm going to tell you 5 moves that I would make if I were the general manager of the Atlanta Braves this offseason. That on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at Locked On_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for your support there as we continue to grow up over 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you so much for that. If you're on the audio side, you can help out as well. Just leave a quick 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for all your support here at Locked On Braves and making us your first listen of each and every day. Big shout out to all the everydayers out there and those who come into YouTube just to leave a comment to help out the algorithm. It does help me a ton, I promise you. So thank you so much for your support there. Today's episode is the one you've all been waiting for. I'm going to tell you what I would do. I'm going to put on my GM hat, try to be somewhat realistic, and tell you 5 moves that I would make. Who am I targeting? Which players would I go after if I were the GM of the Atlanta Braves? And you can obviously kill me and roast me in the comment section, whatever you think if you don't agree with these. Get to some of your comments as well later in the episode. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So today's the one that I know a lot of you have been asking about, the players that I'm targeting, the players I would like to see the Braves go after. And so I'm going to detail that, go through the top priorities as we discussed many times. We talked about shortstop, relief pitcher, starting pitcher, and a big bat. Those are my top 4 priorities in that order this offseason for the Atlanta Braves. Last week, we looked at the players at each of those spots. We didn't really get into the big bat, but you know who those are. But we got into the list of shortstops, relief pitchers, and starting pitchers that are going to be available this offseason in free agency. Didn't really go too deep in trades, and I'm not going to in this exercise either because those are just, really hard to know exactly who's available and what the price is going to be. So I'm mainly going to be talking about free agents today. If we're just talking free agent specific, who would I go out and sign? And that's what I'm going to detail for you today. 5 moves that I would make if I were the general manager of the Atlanta Braves this offseason to plug in those holes that this team needs in order to compete, in order that they can take down the Los Angeles Dodgers next season. I'm also going to try to make these moves within reason. We're not going to go too crazy signing all the best free agents. That's not something that Alex Anthopoulos does anyway. So we're going to kind of be a little bit reasonable, but I am expecting them to spend big money this offseason. I've said that many times. You reset the tax last year. That's fine, whatever. I get it to some degree, but you better come back this offseason and you better open up that paycheck, that pocketbook, whatever the case may be, and spend a lot of money this offseason. So again, I'm going to try to do this within reason, but I think these are all reasonable expectations for the Atlanta Braves. The first thing to get done is shortstop position. It's my top priority. And at that spot, I'm getting Ha-Seong Kim. Whether he picks up the option or not, I'm getting Ha-Seong Kim. Hopefully he does pick up the player option, $16 million. That would be fantastic. I don't think that he does. And even if he doesn't, I'm signing him for 3 years, $55 million. I think that's a reasonable expectation. That's a little over $18 million annually. We talked about it during the season when we were discussing the possibility of Ha-Seong Kim returning, and you put him in that echelon of shortstops where I don't think he's quite on the Dansby Swanson level, obviously not on the Corey Seager, Francisco Lindor levels. I think he's a step just below those guys. So he's not at the $30 million range. He's not at that $20 to $25 million range, but I think he is close to that, $15, $20 million type of range. So $18 million a year, I think makes sense for Ha-Seong Kim. And I think 3 years is where I feel comfortable. Now, if I have to go to a 4th year, hopefully you can do a 4th year team option with a buyout, a substantial buyout. If that's what it takes to get it done, that's fine. And again, that's still a little bit pricey for me, for a guy who, even in his best offensive seasons, is an average offensive bat. And also for a guy coming off an injury-filled season where the defense took a huge step back. But you're hoping, healthy, go through a healthy offseason, come back next year, hopefully be healthier, that the defense will return And the offense will too. It's not like the offense was great. I know he's better once he joined the Braves, but you're hoping to get a guy that can steady that position. And as I talked about at the end of the regular season, where we discussed, letting Freddie Freeman walk, letting Dansby Swanson walk, letting Max Fried walk in free agency, I said the one that really bugs me the most is Dansby, because you did nothing to replace him. And so now you are in a spot where you really got to go and probably overpay for a guy in Ha-Seong Kim, who, like I said, even in his best years, he's average offensively, although in his best years, he has been Gold Glove worthy defensively. But that's really the situation that you put yourself in. And the backup options, there are none, at least realistic. I doubt they're going to spend on Bo Bichette, and even if they do, I don't know that he's a shortstop long-term. Now, you could sign Bo Bichette just to get the bat, and then you can figure out what to do with him once you get there. Maybe you live with him at shortstop for a year or two. Again, when I watched him play at shortstop, just my own eyes, I think he's looked fine there. Even in the World Series playing second base, I thought he made some good plays on the shortstop side of second base. So, and that's with a bum knee. I'd be fine, again, if they were willing to spend the money, and I don't think they would be. I would be fine if they signed Bo Bichette to be the shortstop for now, and then you kind of just figure that out down the road and just buy his bat, essentially, and live with him at shortstop. And maybe you keep Nick Allen as a defensive replacement. Maybe you have some days where you DH Bo Bichette. Maybe if Ozzie, you don't bring him back after 2026, or maybe you bring him back for this next season, he doesn't hit, and you want to move on there, you can move Bo Bichette over the second base. There's ways that you can work around that if you wanted to spend the money on Bo Bichette. I just don't think they will. And again, outside of that, there's not too many realistic options that I can see at shortstop if it's not Ha-Seong Kim. So I'm going out, I'm doing whatever it takes within reason to get Ha-Seong Kim. Now, if his price, he goes free agency and his price just goes bananas, and we're talking 4 years at 20, 25 million a year. No thanks. I mean, there is a certain point where I have to say that's just ridiculous. But I think it's within reason to say 3 years, 55, 60 million for Ha-Seong Kim. That's probably about the highest as I would go, about 20 million a year. Like I said, or if you had to do the fifth or the fourth year as a team option with a $5 billion buyout, something like that, I'd be okay with that as well. But Ha-Seong Kim, that's the first thing that I'm doing. Number 2 was the bullpen for me. And I think you need 2 arms. And I'm bringing back Raisel Iglesias, and I'm going out and getting Gregory Soto. And neither one of those, even myself, just looking at that, neither one of those give me the warm and fuzzies. None of those give me a great feeling. But I go out and sign Iggy to a 1-year, $12 million deal with a team option for 2027 and a $2 million buyout. So you're essentially giving him 14 guaranteed million to come back for 1 more year. At his age, I think that's appropriate. Maybe he gets a 2-year deal, but I think that's appropriate. And the season that he's coming off of, obviously, the great second half of the bad first half, I think that could be done with the relationship that you have with Iggy. And I still think he can be a good closer. I believe in what he did in the second half. I still think the stuff is that good. It's not a dominant profile by any means, but I still think the stuff is that good. It took him too long to adjust in the first half to just ditch that slider with all the home runs he was giving up on it. But once he did, it was Raisel Iglesias again. So I'm comfortable bringing him back again, especially if you can get him at that price to be your closer. And it's also at a price point where, let's say that he, Father Time does catch up with him, and he's more like first half Iggy. He's giving up too many home runs, and the stuff just isn't working. You can quickly, move him out of that role. It's just, I don't know who else you put in there, but I think that would be a price point where you'd be comfortable moving him out of that closer's role if he just doesn't have it. And the other arm I'm picking up, I do think the Braves need another lefty. The only one, you got Bummer, you got Lee. Dodd's not really a lefty. He's better against righties. But I don't know that they have that true just situational lefty. And I think Gregory Soto, he is that. Like, he is a situational lefty. You do not want him facing righties. This past season, lefties slashed 192, 280, 549 OPS off of him, but righties had an 801 OPS off of him. So it is somebody you strictly want facing lefties, but I think the Braves need that. And I think Gregory Soto could give that. Might be pricey. 2 years, 20 million is what I put down. That feels like a lot. But Minter got 2 for 22 from the Mets. So I think that's probably in the ballpark of what Soto could get in free agency. He averages 97 on the fastball, so that's good stuff that could play up in the postseason. Just a 4% barrel rate last year, so he misses barrels. Nearly a 30% whiff rate on all of his pitches, a 45.5% whiff rate on his slider is ridiculous. My backup plan here outside of Soto would be Danny Coulomb. You can get him as a lefty, or I would love to trade for Garrett Clevenger. I feel like that's a name I've been saying for years now, but if you could somehow get the Rays to move him, I would absolutely love to get Garrett Clevenger for my lefty. But those are the first three moves that I'm making. I'm bringing in Ha-Seong Kim, shore up the shortstop spot till hopefully you're able to groom somebody for your future shortstop, because there's just nobody right now in the farm system that I can confidently say they're the future shortstop of the team. But hopefully you can patch that with Ha-Seong Kim for 3 years until hopefully you have that guy ready. And then on the bullpen side of things, I'm bringing back Iggy to be my closer, and then I'm going to get Soto to be a situational lefty. So that's my first three moves that I'm making. But I got two more left: starting pitcher and the big bat. We'll get into those two moves here next. The NBA season is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. You can check out FanDuel.com right now. They already have the 2026 World Series odds out there. No surprise, the Los Angeles Dodgers are the big favorite at plus 350, followed by the Yankees. Then you got the Phillies and Mets. You got to go all the way down to the 8th best odds to find the Atlanta Braves. So remember, last offseason, the Braves were pretty much first, second, third in World Series odds all offseason. And then they had the year that they had. So maybe now it's a good thing that they're down a little bit. But you make some of these moves that I'm talking about in this episode, and I think those odds are going to greatly increase. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you, as always, making Locked On Braves your very first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Let the guys from MLB Game Night, including Lindsay, know how appreciative you are of the great work they did all season long. But now they'll turn things over to Sully for the offseason. He'll get you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball, all the biggest moves happening as we get ready for a big offseason. But here on today's podcast and on this podcast the rest of the week, we'll continue our offseason predictions preview. I'm expecting a lot of news this week. I'm expecting a managerial hire this week. We'll have options to talk about later in the week. So it's going to be a busy week here at Locked On Braves. So make sure that you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Getting back into my general manager duties, the moves that I would make: Ha-Seong Kim, bring back Iggy, sign Soto as a lefty specialist. And next, for starting pitcher, Zac Gallen. 3 years, $66 million, $22 million a year, that number that Alex Anthopoulos seems to like. I think that's the right number. It's just, I'm not great at predicting numbers necessarily. I did go back and look at some other starting pitchers that signed recently, kind of, proven veteran starters, but somebody that is coming off a down year like Zac Gallen, and I'm hoping that means the price is down a little bit. He'll play most of next year at 30, so still relatively young, and he's been reliable since entering the big leagues. He had 15 starts as a rookie in 2019, had 12 starts in that COVID year, and he's averaged 170 innings in every year since then, with the fewest amount being 121. So he's been very, very reliable and dependable as a starter in the big leagues. Now, the production has been somewhat mediocre. Just looking at the numbers for Zac Gallen, they wouldn't scream you as a guy that I think most people would consider to be a top of the rotation arm. He had the one really good year in 2022. Outside of that, especially if you look at his expected numbers, it's a 3.75, 4 ERA type of pitcher. So it's not like you're getting a top of the line guy, but as I've said, I don't think the Braves need that. I think they need somebody that's going to give them innings, give them quality innings. And I think Zac Gallen can do that. Even this past year, coming off a season where he had a 4.83 ERA, it was a bad year for Zac Gallen as he really got crushed by the long ball, but he still gave you 15 quality starts. He still threw 192 innings. And that's very, very valuable for a team that just really needs innings and needs quality innings to get you through the season. And I think he has the potential to do more than that. I definitely expect him to have a good bounce back year. He has not had Tommy John surgery yet, and that does scare me a little bit because, as I've said with pitchers, it's just if, or not if, it's when it's going to happen. He did have a sprain in his UCL back in 2021, but again, has pitched many innings since that. But that's just the risk with all pitchers. All pitchers come with major injury risk. You got there's the opportunity you sign Zac Gallen to a 3-year, $66 million deal. He blows out his UCL in spring training or even in the middle of the season, and you lose him for a year and a half. That's just the risk you run when you sign starting pitchers. But at some point, you still have to go sign something. You still have to make something happen. And I think because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if the trade route is the way that AA goes for starting pitcher, if he is going to get a quality starting pitcher this offseason, which, again, it doesn't have to be top of the rotation for me, but I do think you need another quality starting pitcher to just build out your depth. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes more of the trade route just because I feel like he would rather give up prospects than commit money long-term to a starting pitcher. In 3 years, not necessarily long-term, but like I said, you blow out the UCL in spring training, he's gone for all of next year, and then, obviously working his way back in 2027. So you're getting a year and a half of a guy that you signed for 3 years. That's just a risk that you take when you sign pitchers. Then you don't know how they're going to look like coming back from that injury. If they do go the trade route, I'd look to the Twins, whether it be Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Pablo Lopez. I think the Twins are a team that's heading down. And I would not be surprised if they trade a pitcher or two this offseason. So if that's the way the Braves want to go, I think the Twins can be a team to look at. I know there's been a lot of people out there about Sonny Gray from the Cardinals. They'd have to eat a lot of that money for me to consider Sonny Gray. I think there are some trade targets out there that might be a little bit less risky, not committing so much money long-term. But for me, I'm taking a shot, and I'm taking a shot on Zac Gallen to be that guy, assuming that he is healthy and that the troubles he had this year, weren't necessarily injury related. I'm taking a shot on Zac Gallen. And now into my final move of the offseason. This is my favorite one, and it's the big bat. And I'm not going to say never, but I don't know too many times I've been this excited about a fit for the Atlanta Braves. And a guy that I'm really going to be cheering for them to go out and get. And that's Cody Bellinger. I predicted 5 years, 125. That potentially feels low for Cody Bellinger, who might get $30 million a year. But again, I've never felt so good about the fit of a player in free agency than I do for Cody Bellinger. And here's why. He's become a well-rounded bat. It's a 15, 16% strikeout rate. He doesn't strike out a ton. He walks. He has some speed. He can steal 10 to 20 bases for you, and he still has good power. It's not 40 home run power like he had earlier in his career, but it's still 20 to 30 home run power. Now, he got 29 in Yankee Stadium this past year because of that short porch, and we can still do that in Atlanta. But I think it's somebody it's that well-rounded bat that I think the Braves need, but also has power. I was hoping the Blue Jays won that World Series, and we may still do it depending on things get slow this week. I was going to go back and analyze the type of offense that the Blue Jays have, because I think it's an offense that an offensive style that I would like to see the Braves kind of emulate, a style where, the focus is putting the ball in play, but not at the sake of losing power. That Blue Jays team, they put the ball in play, but they also hit a ton of home runs. Unfortunately, the Dodgers just hit a couple of more in that final game. But having that well-rounded offense up and down the lineup of guys who can put the ball in play, but also are going to hit 20 to 30 home runs. And I take that sacrifice. I think personally, maybe you don't agree, because home runs are still the way. Don't get me wrong. But I think I take that sacrifice in hitting 10 fewer home runs for hitting 10, 20 points more higher in average and 10 and 20 points more higher in on-base percentage. I think I take that sacrifice. Again, it doesn't mean you're not hitting a bunch of home runs, but instead of hitting 35-40, I'm hitting 25-30, but I'm getting on base 20-30% more of the time. I'm getting hits 20 to 30% more of the time. Maybe that's too high of a number, but I think you get the point that I'm saying. I'm just looking for guys that are more well-rounded without completely sacrificing power. And I think Cody Bellinger does that, and he plays all three outfield positions. He can back up first base, maybe get Matt Olson a day in the DH spot. And he plays a good outfield. Like, he's a great defender. And so I just think Cody Bellinger is a perfect fit for what the Braves need. I talked about the fact that you do have a hole at DH. You do need another bat. And I would love to get somebody that, can DH, but also play in the field. I do not want a full-time DH again, unless you're going to sign Kyle Schwarber, which I don't think is going to happen. And I just think Cody Bellinger fits a lot of the needs that the Atlanta Braves have in the type of hitter, but also just where he can play defensively and how he can play defensively. You can get, Profar out of left field. You can give him starts at second base and get Ozzie, at DH. You can just do so many different things with a guy like Cody Bellinger. Now, because of that, and because he just had a big year at Yankee Stadium, it could potentially drive the price up to a point where the Braves just aren't going to play. And that's likely what happens. While I do feel great about Cody Bellinger as a fit for the Braves, I don't feel great about their chances of actually signing him. Some backup options here would be, obviously Kyle Tucker, but I don't think that's going to happen either. They're not signing Schwarber. You could maybe trade for Jordan Duran, although I don't love that. I'm not the biggest Jordan Duran guy. Maybe you can convince Byron Buxton to waive his no trade from Minnesota. I just don't see a ton out there that fit as well as Cody Bellinger does for the Braves' needs and the type of hitter that I think is somewhat realistic. Now, like I said, unless Cody Bellinger's AAV just goes well beyond 30 million, the Braves obviously aren't going to play in that realm. And I think the Yankees very much want and need Cody Bellinger back, and that's just going to drive the price up even more. But again, this is my somewhat fantasy offseason and what I would do. And Cody Bellinger is the guy that I would push pretty hard for this offseason just because of the fit that he is for this Braves team. So that's my offseason. If this were to get done, here's what the lineup could look like. Acuna, Bellinger, Olsen, Riley, and Drake. That is a pretty deadly top five in your order right there. Acuna, Belly, Olsen, Riley, and Drake. Assuming Riley, obviously bounces back. And then even the bottom of your lineup, you're talking about Profar, Ozzie, Michael Harris, Ha-Seong Kim. I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find a lineup in baseball that is much deeper than that. And again, we're hoping for better years from Ozzie and Michael Harris, but getting a Kim at the bottom is a guy that can get on base and have some speed. I mean, the speed really potential at the bottom of that lineup with Profar, Ozzie, Michael Harris, Kim, and then even turning it over to Acuna and Belly, the potential for speed. I mean, really only Olsen, Riley, and Drake. And Riley's a fast guy, just not somebody that steals bases. Suddenly you're looking at a lineup that doesn't have a lot of dead weight in it once it gets on base. And that excites me a ton. You look at the rotation, Sell, Schwellenbach, Gallen, Strider, and then the fifth spot, Lopez, Holmes, Waldrop, Elder. I mean, that's a pretty deep rotation. I don't know too many teams that are, matching that rotation outside of the Dodgers. And then you look at the bullpen even. Iglesias, Jimenez coming back, Dylan Lee, Pierce Johnson, Tyler Kinley, Gregory Soto is your lefty specialist. Bummer in there. And then you also have Dodd, Harris, Daysbell, Lara, Payamps, Munoz, Suarez. You have some options there in that last spot, just depending on what you need, somebody to give you some length. Again, it's somewhat fantastical, as I know I'm just sitting here armchair GMing, but I also don't think these moves are too unrealistic, especially in the first segment, the Kim, Iggy, and Soto. I don't think those are too unrealistic. Getting Gallen, getting Bellinger, it's going to cost you a good bit of money, and those are going to be the harder ones. But again, I'm expecting big things this offseason. It's a big offseason for Alex Anthopoulos. You got to make this right managerial hire. You got to make the right personnel moves. And I expect them to have a big offseason. I expect them to spend some money. All right, next, I'll get into some of your comments. I asked what you would do if you were the GM. What moves would you make? We'll get into those here next. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives you the advantage back. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Now, we got free tickets handed to us for the Auburn game this past weekend because who really wants to go watch them play? I turned it down because I wanted to watch the World Series, but was looking at the Game Time app just curious, see, how much did these tickets cost? How much could I get for them on Game Time if I wanted to take some more people with us? I use Game Time whenever I go to a Braves game. I've already used them this offseason to go to a college football game. It is that simple. I love it. And I see it, the view from my seat. I know the price is going to be the price that I see once I get to the checkout. I do love using the Game Time app, and so will you. Download it today, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. I'll ask some of you, if you were going to be the GM of the Atlanta Braves, which moves would you make? I'll read some of those here for you right now. Joey Milby says, Ha-Seong Kim, Pete Fairbanks in a trade. I'm still going after Clevenger. If I'm talking to the Rays, can you give me Clevenger? Joey also said Dylan Cease. I wouldn't mind that. Also somebody that's very durable. And Ketel Marte. Look, if the Diamondbacks were willing to trade Ketel Marte, yes, that's a no-brainer. I'm doing it in a heartbeat. He's the best second baseman in baseball. He can also play left field, although he's really good defensively at second base. You figure it out with Ozzy. Either you trade him or you put him in the DH spot, but you can get a bat like Ketel Marte. The Diamondbacks are willing to part ways with him. Yeah, you jump all over that. Chris1414 says Ha-Seong Kim at shortstop. Keller, that's going to be a big name for relievers this offseason. Sonny Gray at starting pitcher and Buxton for the bat. Like I said, if you can get Buxton away with no trade, certainly that would qualify as the big bat. He can play the outfield position, can play center to back up Michael Harris if he struggles. The Gray one, they got to eat a lot of money for me to take on Sonny. Even though it's just 1 year, I think it's still like $35 million. That's a lot of money for Sonny Gray. They'd have to eat at least $10 million of that. Whit Price says Corey Seager, again, another big money addition, and I don't think the Rangers are going to eat much of that money, but would be a huge bat. Iglesias and Williams on 1-year deals. I thought about Williams. I don't think you do both, but if not, if you didn't want to bring Iggy back and you want to go outside, do something a little bit different, I would not mind at all them taking a shot on Devin Williams. As I said last week, the numbers were still there for Devin Williams. I don't know why he struggled as much as he did with the Yankees and in Yankee Stadium, maybe just his first year somewhere else, but the numbers all still looked fantastic for him. I would not mind at all taking a shot on Devin Williams. Whit also says Zac Gallen. So that's a curious one, but maybe somebody can be that mid back of the rotation guy. And then Cody Bellinger. I don't think you're doing Seager and Bellinger. That seems like a definite dream scenario. But yeah, either one of those would be great. Dustin Mount says trades Jeremy Peña, Pete Fairbanks, Pablo Lopez, and Byron Buxton. Free agents Ha-Seong Kim, Devin Williams, Ranger Suarez, and Ryan O'Hearn, or any mixture of trades and free agents. So Jeremy Peña is available for trade. If Ha-Seong Kim doesn't work out, that would be great. But for what I hear from Astros fans, they think it's very doubtful Peña gets traded. I talked about Devin Williams and Fairbanks already. Talked about Pablo Lopez. Ranger Suarez, again, would not mind that at all. I think he's a very good pitcher. I just don't know that the Phillies let him get away. Ryan O'Hearn, if you can't find, you can't get Bellinger, you can't get Buxton, you can't get one of those just big bats, I do think you just kind of sell out for a power guy like Ryan O'Hearn. XRP Brave says shortstop Seager, really pitcher Iggy, starting pitcher Ranger, big bat already accounted for in Seager. And I agree. If you were to, let's say it's even possible and you were able to go out and get a Seager, that does also qualify as the big bat. It takes away the need for another big bat. Kim does not. You still need a big bat if you get Kim, but you get Seager, and that qualifies for both of those. Jason Watson says JP Crawford, Raisel Iglesias, Luis Castillo, and Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill could just stay healthy. I wouldn't mind him for that DH spot and big power. Cass Buckeyes says Kim, Robert Suarez, Cease, or Ranger, and Tucker. Robert Suarez is another one I thought about because it's similar to Iggy. I think you just go with the known that you already have in Iggy, but Robert Suarez is somebody that's racked up a lot of saves, probably has bigger stuff and the potential to be more dominant than Iggy. Although the numbers wouldn't necessarily say that, but he just has, typically bigger fastball, essentially. Although Iggy can get it up there, 96, 97 himself. I think both of those are kind of even, though. Iggy, Robert Suarez, I put them pretty much in the same boat. And then Edward, even though you got me blocked on social media, you responded to my post. Sorry if I offended you. I don't know why you blocked me. But Edward says Kim, Iggy, Skubal trade, and Schwarber. That's a definite dream scenario there. Trade for Skubal and sign Schwarber. But I agree, Kim and Iggy, as I talked about, I think those are very likely to happen. Thanks so much for sending those comments in. I do appreciate it, and your support here of the podcast and your contribution to the podcast as well. Quickly touching on the World Series. Look, I take what I want out of it. Obviously, wanted the Blue Jays to win. It's one of the greatest World Series I've ever witnessed. And for me, it really goes back to like the 2011 was the first one that came to mind for me as just a incredible. Obviously, 2011, you had the moment, the David Freese home run. It's one of those moments I'll never forget where I was when David Freese hit the home run and all of that. I don't know that this World Series had that one big moment. It had a ton of just really big moments. I don't know if it had the one, maybe the Miggy Rojas home run. Even in the 16 World Series, the Cubs won it, but most I remember from that World Series was the Rajat Davis home run. And maybe that's what you remember from this World Series is just the Miggy Rojas home run, just the unlikeliest. The guy's talking about retiring after the year. And there's just so many plays. Poor Blue Jays fans, man. My heart just pours out for them and just how close they were. I mean, the play at home with IKF, if he just gets a little bit better secondary lead, that foot from Will Smith is hovering in the air for just a second. It did look like it got back down just in time. The ball by Ernie Clement where Pages and Hernandez collided, if that had gone just a few feet further, it's just so many close plays in that series. It could have gone one way. It was just refreshing. I mean, I expect the Dodgers to just blow them out and this not even really be a series. Credit to the Blue Jays. I mean, not only did they make it a series, I mean, you can argue for the most of the series, they looked like the better team, but it was that close. It was that tight. You give the Dodgers a lot of credit too. They obviously have all that talent for a reason, and that talent played out. I think it also tells you as a baseball fan, you can spend as much money as you want to. You got to play the game the right way. And the Blue Jays played the game the right way. And again, that's a coin flip series. They could have very easily won it. You go back to the 18-inning game. So many moments in that one where it could have gone the other way, and they could have won this thing in 5 games. And so it was a really fun, entertaining series. Obviously hate that the Dodgers won it again, but they're the best team in baseball for a reason. They have the most talent. They spend the most money. They're the best run organization, and that's why they won. That's where the Braves are hoping to get to. That's where the Braves want to go. This managerial hire, hopefully a big offseason, continue to develop the farm system, which I think they're doing a better job of, and hopefully the Braves can get to that place again. And, that's the Dodgers are the gold standard. Like them or love them or hate them. I think that's what I'm going to say. They are the gold standard, and that's what everybody is shooting for. And hopefully the Braves can get back to that very, very soon with a big offseason. So make sure you subscribe here to Locked On Braves. We'll talk about all the happenings this offseason, managerial hire that should come this week. We'll cover all that here at Locked On Braves. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't already. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.